So, something has caught my attention, and it was mostly over time, and it was in the comment section from our previous two top fives for beginners, and that's the trend of it actually reaching its intended audience. I'm not gonna lie, when we made those videos, it was basically my full intention to just basically make it, and if anybody who needed them just so happened to stumble upon them, then that would have been great. However, actual beginners actually got to see the videos, which was pretty incredible. And it's honestly really refreshing considering the state of the community has a lot of people in gloom and doom about the current state of the game, which is a whole entire conversation for another time. But upon realizing that those videos were actually being able to reach beginner players to the point where I was being asked questions on how to get into the game in those comment sections, was pretty incredible and made me realize that a very big thing has happened, and that's the fact that there are no real beginner videos post the game's launch. Yes, a bunch of my fellow colleagues and players have made plenty, and I mean plenty, of guides on how to get into the game, but the issue is that those guides were made very early on, if not right smack at the beginning of the game's life cycle. And obviously, a lot has changed since then, and especially since we're coming up on the first anniversary, as well as with the release of the new set, I figured it would be the perfect opportunity to basically make a up-to-date version of those videos. Not saying that they're bad or completely outdated, but just that there's some things that might not be applicable in the modern game, as well as that because we all now have a lot more experience with the game, I think there's plenty of advice that we can give out to beginners to help them accumulate into the game as they get into it. Now, to make things clear, this is not a guide on the rules or the specifics that go into actually playing the game. This video is basically covering everything else aside from that, including things that you'll need to get into the game, as well as how to find locals as well as people to play with. Now, with all that started, let's get into it. Now, this is probably the most intimidating part of actually getting into the game, especially if you know nothing about the Gundam franchise itself, let alone if it's your first ever card game. And to assist in that transition, I do have a few suggestions. First off is actually trying to learn and play the game before buying product. Now, obviously, you want to make sure that the game is both fun as well as playable for yourself before you go and spend like $20 to $40 on a pair of structure decks. So, how do you figure out the game getting into it by yourself? Well, actually, there's a few resources for that. First off is the official Gundam TCG demo app on mobile, which will not only walk you through on how to play the game, but also allows you to take certain pre-made decks and test them out against AI. The fact that it's an official game sim makes this the perfect resource on figuring out if the game's the perfect fit for you without having to spend money. Another official way to test out the card game, and this is sadly a bit more specific as well as dependent on the area you live in, but if you do live near a place that's going to do a Gundam-based pop-up location, or if you live in the Chicagoland area, you actually can go to those locations and they most likely will have tutorials specifically for you to learn the game, as well as they're basically giving out sample decks like they're candy, just so that way you can have a guided play session of the game and learn how the game works in and out. I've actually attended the one at the Chicagoland location, and they're pretty helpful. I'm not gonna lie, if you are a beginner getting into it, this is also another great way. Granted, it is, once again, very specific on the area you live in, so better stick to the Gundam TCG demo app rather than actively seeking out something that might not even be within your state. However, the game actually opens up a lot more if you also have a friend who is trying to learn the game with you, as another option can actually be used for this. Mobile Suit Arena is a fan-powered project that allows people to play an automated version of the game online. Using this website, you and your friend can hop online, input a structure deck into the decklist section, and duke it out while being restricted to the rules of the game. Meaning that it'll be harder to make unknown or illegal plays, as well as it will be easier to actually learn the game since a lot of it is actually being automated for you per the game's rules. Now, I would still highly recommend you do a few rounds on the official game sim, as obviously you want to get a very good understanding of at least the basic rules, and hopping into Mobile Suit Arena blindly isn't exactly going to give you that, let alone if you decide to hop into any online lobby as a beginner, because I'm gonna keep it real with you, you probably want to avoid that, because otherwise you're about to take a massive hit to your ego. However, as a practice tool between two people just trying to learn the game, this is basically it. This is a perfect way, as well as a very cheap way, since it literally costs you nothing, since it's basically just a web browser app, to basically just try out the game and see if you like it before doing that crucial step of spending money. Alright, now you've tried the game, you've been practicing the game, you've been practicing either with a friend or with an AI on Wingtable or Mobile Suit Arena, so what's next? It's time to upgrade to real opponents. You see, it's one thing to play the game online or against an AI, however, it's a whole other thing to go in person into a physical store and buy product and play against real people. But this begs the question, how do you find a local? Well, that's actually, once again, officially given to you with the Bandai TCG Plus app. And this handy-dandy mobile app is basically going to be your one-stop shop for finding out about all the events happening for the TCG in general, as well as just finding ones in your local area. Once you download and get set up on the app, you then can go to the store tournament event playlist, input your general location, and boom! You'll see the nearest places to you that just generally host Gundam card game events. You can even sign up for them in the app. Do know though that the app doesn't guarantee your spot, rather it's basically the equivalent of putting your foot in the door where you are in the system, but if you're not gonna show up on time and somebody takes your spot, you're tough out of luck, buddy. Generally, I would always recommend arriving at least 30 minutes before your event is about to start, at least until you can get a vibe of how busy on average your locals is, normally outside of major events, because obviously major events you're about to be starting to fight tooth and nail for a spot. However, if you're just going in for a locals, just scout it out, check it out, look, see, and if it turns out you don't have to worry about your spot, well, the app is basically your guaranteed way of getting in then. Now, it's also, like I mentioned earlier, within the app that you can actually see other events happening locally, or since you're already there in person and are likely to basically keep in constant interaction with the people there, you can just ask your TO or other attendees, what about the other events that are happening in the future? You know, things like set and structure deck launches, new type challenge, and other miscellaneous events that Bandai just tosses at these stores. And the thing is, even if you don't have a physical locals to attend, you can still find locals digitally through Gundam TCG Discords. I mean, there's dozens of YouTuber ones, as well as the fact that Eggman Gaming consistently hosts tournaments online. And even to go further, you can literally just have people sitting around in lobbies waiting for people to join, just so you can do a match over the internet physically with the cards through webcam. So you have plenty of means of actually interacting with the cards against other people, even if it is online. Alright, so now you know the rules, you now know what decks you're interested in playing, you now know where your locals are. Next comes the big question. What decks do you end up buying, actually? Well, if you want to know that, we've literally made 2 videos on the subject matter on the channel, so you guys can go check out the best and worst decks for beginners to build. They are really popping off, and people really seem to enjoy them. So go ahead, watch those, and then pick back up here. Got it? Okay, well, welcome back. Yeah, now that you know the best and worst decks you can build, you can easily just either go for those, or just build your deck from buying 1 to 2 structure decks and picking up the rest on TCG Player. Which, for the most part, the game is actually relatively cheap. You don't have to worry that much about decks. Well, unless you're building a meta deck, but we're talking to beginners here, so you're more than likely not going to build one unless you're an IBO fan. Oh boy, as if you guys didn't suffer enough with that ending already. Okay, you have your deck and your physical cards. Now what? Well, you're probably going to want to sleeve those things up immediately. Now, Gundam TCG cards are actually compatible with 95% of the sleeve market, as they are standard sleeved size, and most companies will actually include the fact that they're standard sleeve size on the box or the website that you're on in order to make sure that you're purchasing the correct sleeve size. So make sure it just says that, and even if you're still unsure after that, simply just ask the people selling stuff at your locals, and they'll basically be able to answer it, because the product we're about to discuss specifically, or the brand I should say, is pretty much widely available at most card shops. And that's going to be Dragon Shield. It's overall a really solid brand that, while yes, does get on the pricier side, it does guarantee you quality, as well as the fact that if you ever want to double sleeve your cards, they basically fit in there perfectly. And like I said, these are basically available at every single card shop, so getting a hold of them isn't a problem, as well as the fact that they're very easily customizable, with some coming with very unique artwork on the sleeves, or if you prefer, you can just buy almost whatever color you want from Dragon Shield. It's actually kind of remarkable the wide color schemes they have for their sleeves. Now, to top off this level of protection, let's also get ourselves a deck box, as not only does that provide ourselves with a place to store the cards, but as well as the fact that most deck boxes are specifically built to keep the cards inside safe. And to top off your sleeves, let's also get you a deck box. Now, I'm going to recommend these ones that I found on Amazon from a company called MageTech. Now, the reason I'd actually recommend these is because the deck boxes come in a very highly customizable and modular system that basically makes it so you just buy whatever you need. Now, the one I would recommend for beginners is basically just getting the Apprentice deck box alongside your dice box, because everything can basically fit inside the deck box at that point. It just really just makes for a nice, simple, and easy, compact package that you can just easily fit into any book bag as a beginner, especially with how small it is. However, a fair warning is that if you do decide to double sleeve your cards, this deck box might have a few problems then, as it barely fits, if not at all, into the deck box when it's double sleeved. So if that ends up happening, then the dice box is going to have to end up coming out separately, which is kind of sad considering it's the whole reason that you would buy this. But you're a beginner, I don't think double sleeving is going to be that much of an issue. Now, speaking of dice, get a set of 6 six-sided die. It doesn't really matter how big or how small it is, just as long as it clearly shows a number from 1 to 6. Now, the reason this is very important is because this is how you'll be showing the damage numbers in the game while you're playing. So just make sure whatever die you get, that it is absolutely clear to both yourself and your opponent what number it is. No need to get too fancy with this. And that's pretty much it for all the necessary accessories. Now, I know some of you guys are thinking I left out a few things that might be necessary in your eyes, but let me explain a few of those items and why they really aren't that necessary. Now, 1, you don't really need a playmat, because a good locals will have the surface of the table you're playing on either be a rubber playmat or cloth, which basically means that your cards are going to be protected on that surface no matter what, really. So mats aren't really necessary unless you really are really keen on showing off what kind of player you are. And for the other item, a binder isn't immediately necessary since you're not likely to start building up trades anytime soon until you start cracking open more boxes or packs of product. Simply just make sure you have a place to store your bulk that is not a backpack pocket, and you'll pretty much be fine. I mean, hell, you could even buy another deck box as a way to future-proof it, so that way you have a safe place to store your cards, but when you start wanting to build more decks, you also have another place to put it, and by that point, you probably will have also gotten a binder. So it's just one of those things where it's personal preference on that matter. Any other product I haven't mentioned yet really isn't that necessary, to be honest, and as long as you have the deck box, the die, as well as the die box and the sleeves, you should be pretty much set to go. Now, if you followed the steps of this guide, you should basically be completely prepared for starting the game. Except for one thing, and it's a very important thing. It's not really something you can buy, it's more that I believe that this is an important mindset and lesson for beginners to go into this game with. And that is the fact you are likely going to lose, and you're going to lose for a very small while. Now, unless you've absolutely splurged and ignored my advice on the beginner decks for a top tier deck right off the bat, then chances are you are going to be consistently going 1-2 or 0-3 for your local tournament runs. Do not let this dissuade you in any way. Now, I'll be making a video on this subject in the future, but never be afraid of failure or losing in this game, or in anything in life, to be honest. Make sure that as you lose, you treat every single lost game as a learning opportunity. What could you have done better? How can you adjust your deck to perform better in those circumstances? What ratios of cards in your deck can you tweak? Going into your locals with this mindset of being willing to learn from defeat and see how quickly you're going to improve your skills as a player, dude. I mean, hell, if your locals is good enough, you can actually just ask the players there for advice after you lose, or advice on your deck, or just get basic trades started. I know for me personally, my locals is very helpful, and if you're missing a few cards like commons or rares, we'll just give it to you, basically. Never underestimate how useful the community you are about to enter might be towards your improvement as a player. Now, like I said, you are absolutely not going to start off as some top 500 prodigy or anything like that, but as long as you go into the game with the realistic expectation that you are going to lose more often than not, then I think you're going in it with the most healthiest of mindsets that you could possibly start the game off with. And that's basically it. Wow, this went on for a lot longer than I thought it would. I really just was out here making this video basically as a checklist on everything I know I would have wanted as a player getting into this game to be told to me personally. So, you know what? If you guys think I missed out or anything, or if you guys have any other questions, please be sure to leave them down in the comment section below, where we can just cover them together. I'm always making sure to check those comment sections down below just to see what you guys are saying and what you guys want for upcoming videos. Now, like I said, I do have a lot more videos like this planned. However, it is always up to you guys and what you guys want to see on this channel. But with all that out of the way, be sure to have a fun time at your Gundam TCG locals, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.